the audience can help me out here. So if a resident or a member of the general public or a member of the governing body has concerns over a contract negotiation like this, is there an authorizing state agency that kind of oversees these these agreements? So like PERC or DCA or some sort of agency?
Well, I would say that the actual negotiations process under the Public Employer-Employee Relations Act empowers the Public Employment Relations Commission to be able to deal in issues of clarification of units, grievances, impasse that is reached between parties. But that is as far as I know that the Public Employment Relations Commission deals with things. I'm not familiar with anything such as this because, at least as I understand the interest in this matter, I don't believe it rises to the level of an unfair labor practice charge, which is another area of jurisdiction for PERC. So I'm not aware that this is an area that they've entered into. I don't know if Mr. Cannon.
Yeah. So on the labor side, if there was an issue with the labor terms or the fairness of negotiation, it'd be more of a PERC matter. It's also the local government ethics board, since all local public contracts is no different than any other. That would be the only other state agency that would be overseeing it.
Anyone submit like a complaint or a grievance to either one of those agencies if they were concerned about how the negotiations went down?
Not to my knowledge, from within the borough.
Okay.
No one in the borough has alerted me that anyone in the borough has filed any.
That's not a question.
Yeah, my member of the general public or anyone.
Oh, if someone wanted to?
Yeah.
That's exactly what the local government ethics board does, is accept complaints from the public or people who are inside an organization.
Okay. And if somebody were to file a complaint, would we be notified formally or informally?
So the local government ethics board would initially investigate they really call them reports, right, on a complaint. And then they would determine whether the facts and circumstances warranted the board taking action, in which case they would have a vote, and then there would, I'm sorry. Thank you, Greg. So there would be a report, and then there's a preliminary investigation. I don't know if you ever dealt with any state agency like Division of Civil Rights or ELEC, the Election Law Enforcement Commission, or the Attorney Ethics Board for that matter. It's all the same. They do a preliminary investigation, and then if they determine that it should go to complaint, then they file a notification to all interested parties.
But we might not know that like prelim investigation is being done. Or
No, the purpose of the preliminary investigation is not to throw someone's name on a government report somewhere until they know that there's at least reasonably likelihood, similar to a probable cause standard. The police don't arrest someone because they think something happened.
I have to disagree with you on that, Greg. I think that in all investigations, the defendant is noticed in every situation, at least with regard to the police department.
So I think if you look at it in the police department, you might not notify a suspect that they're under investigation, but when you filed the summons or a warrant, there's actual filing, then they would know.
You must do that, and I can't imagine that any other state agency doesn't do it that way. But
my point to you is like if you're investigating someone for suspected drug dealing, right? You don't go up on their door and send them a letter. You determine there's probable cause.
Beyond what we're talking about here, I think.
But it's a similar. I mean, one's a civil process and one's criminal. So obviously the criminal.
And I agree, and I see the difference between the two, but I disagree with you on the fact that you think that if there's some sort of investigation, that there wouldn't be some notification on that. Absolutely.
I mean, I'll give you. Look, I don't have any personal experience with the government this board, but
I do. I am personally.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So for example, ELEC, if you file an ELEC report, they don't notify anybody until they determine that there's some sort of merit. They subpoena the bank accounts and then they file what's called target letter.
But that's not technically an investigation at that point. At that point, it's just an allegation. So there's a difference between the two. I think you'll agree with me on that.
Yes, what I'm saying,
Okay.
we both agree that it gets stepped up at the point.
I'm not gonna disagree, I'm just saying that when it comes to investigations, the defendant or the alleged defendant absolutely has to have the ability to know that the investigation takes place. I know that for a fact.
But in these state agency cases, there is no defendant until they make the preliminary determination of merit. So if someone makes a report, they're the subject of a
If someone
report.
makes a report to a public agency, then the agency has the right, has the obligation to notice that, absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
once
okay.
they get to that point, yes. Fundamentally,
An
in this case,
investigation is an allegation. I don't know what you're talking about as far as, it's, making it, the investigation begins when there's an allegation. Okay, that's technically what an investigation is. We're not talking about a road situation here. We're not talking about an officer, a police officer being accused of corruption. We're not talking about anything there. We're
Correct.
talking about an allegation on some sort of violation. It's apples and oranges, right? Apples and oranges.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, in the case of this process, there would be a report to that agency, and then the agency determines if it's necessary to make a complaint. Some agencies give you the opportunity to respond, some don't. Local government ethics board or these sort of public trust agencies, they typically don't do anything official until they determine there's some reason that they could have merit.
So that therefore, if someone called up and said, I think that A, B, and C is happening over there, and they don't see any kind of credibility there, they're not gonna follow up on it, and they're not gonna notify it. They're not gonna
Correct.
do anything.
It would never go to complaint, correct?
That's right.
Yes. I think we're on the same page. I answer your question.
Yes. So just to be clear, the Borough of Bradley Beach, we have not been formally or informally notified that there is an investigation already occurring.
I have not, and in the
No.
past, I have been notified when there have been.
I would get notice of that as the borough attorney, and that's why I said my initial answer was no, I have not received any notice to that effect.
So
Alright.
it doesn't exist to the best of our knowledge.
There is no complaint that I'm aware of.
To
That's
the
been
best of
filed.
our knowledge, it doesn't exist.
Correct. If there was, we would know.
To the best of our knowledge, it doesn't exist.
Are you cross-examining me, chief?
I'm asking you a question. It's a yes or no question.
If there
To the
was,
best of our knowledge, it doesn't exist.
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Be a good lawyer.
I know.
So I guess, what I'm trying to ascertain here, right, is a couple of things. One is there already an investigation going on, and are we gonna be spending money on something that's already happening? And two, is there a way to accomplish the goal of the resolution not using all the beach taxpayer funds? Is there a state agency that can perform the work and do it not on Bradley Beach taxpayers' dime?
I mean, yes, if you filed a complaint with the local government ethics board, they would look into the circumstances, yes.
We would have to report ourselves, you're saying?
Yes. Which as your counsel, I don't necessarily recommend, but if people have concerns, I'm certainly not going to tell you to keep them under the rug.
So I can't help but feel that people are interpreting this many different ways. There were concerns raised to the council that the council, members of the council, some or all, without being specific, that the council may have done things that some folks viewed as inappropriate. We really cannot police ourselves. If I'm the person who was not involved in there, I certainly can't assess Ms. DeNoble if she was involved in whatever these questions are that have been raised. This has not, it references collective bargaining, but it has nothing to do with the collective bargaining agreements, at least as far as I know. This has only to do with.
Excuse me, Councilman, and we've had this discussion before. You and I had.
We
this
did,
discussion.
I reached out.
And if it doesn't pertain to the collective bargaining agreement, then why are we even discussing? I mean, there's an alleged.
I'm trying to explain.
complaint.
I'm trying
There's an
to
alleged,
explain.
this is what you told me before. I mean, this is what we had a very heartfelt conversation
Yeah,
about.
I reached out to you to let you
And
know.
I appreciate that. But as I said to you then, if it doesn't exist, why are we going there?
All right, I'm not gonna, well, I don't know how many folks in this audience or in Zoom have actually read this, but I'll read one particular whereas that might answer your question. Whereas the mayor and council hold the public trust in the highest regard and have an obligation to serve the public with transparency and with the utmost integrity. And I will continue, there's a lengthy thing here, but primarily questions have been raised about us as a council. We can't police it ourselves. We were asking for our lead attorney, Mr. Cannon, to help us identify an independent counsel who will look into all the facts and circumstances and hopefully tell us there was absolutely nothing wrong.
And again, we spoke about this and I agree with you 100%. But the problem with this is,
Order, please.
if there's another investigation going on, and I think Mr. Cannon would agree with me on this, no one wants simultaneous investigations going on at the same time. No one wants that. No investigative resource wants to do that. I certainly don't want it.
Operative
The,
orders.
the DCA does not want it. So why would, and again, what are we basing this on? Are we basing this on a complaint or a rumor of a complaint? That's my problem with this whole issue.
So first of all, the operative word that you just used was if other investigations are going on. We've been told complaints may or may not have been filed. To your point, we have to assume nothing's being done.
By who?
By residents.
By who? This is an issue, Councilman, we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
I'm not, because for me to disclose that, not only is it disclosing names that it's just not warranted for the rest of the world.
And that's perfectly okay. But again, if that's the case, sir, then we should leave it to the DCA.
We don't know.
If they made this complaint to the DCA, which they're alleged to have done, I don't know. I'll ask anybody. Does anyone know of a DCA complaint or any other complaint to this, to a state agency? Does anybody know of this?
Councilman Gubitosi seems to.
I am aware. Yes, I am. And
I mean,
yes.
my point
I'll
being,
raise my hand. Yes, sir.
sir,
I'm aware complaints were made, whether any action is being
well,
taken.
then I would suggest that I did to you when we spoke, with all due respect, sir. I would explain, I would say to you, let them do their investigation and let them make their decision.
I don't know.
Otherwise,
I don't know if they're taking the.
these things of politics, and I told you this before. It's things of politics.
People
Let an independent agency do an independent investigation. That's what I said.
I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And with that said, the only politics I'm concerned about are representing the public fairly and honestly with integrity. So as far as I'm concerned, if that question, these questions have been raised about our governing body, we need an independent expert telling us you're all clear, you did nothing wrong, or if there was even the mildest question, at least we all learned from that and we move forward more appropriately.
But I'll ask you another question. I can ask you a question. Then I, this is a question that was asked before. What happens when one agency says there's nothing there and the other agency says that there is something there? What happens when it's the opposite? It creates a real problem.
Well, perhaps, but I'm looking at it, I think.
With all due respect, sir, I don't think perhaps, I think it definitely creates a problem, and it creates a problem. Let an independent agency handle it, and if something's wrong, sir, please go ahead and do
I
it.
appreciate your comments. I appreciate them.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, I'm sitting here on this council. The council is aware of questions that have been raised about us. At least I, for one, I can't speak for my colleagues, would like to see an independent assessment of the situation.
Well, if
That's it.
that exists in if there's an actual litigation, then that's gonna happen, sir. What do we have to pay? What do we have to pay an attorney for? That Mr. Cannon's gonna recommend an attorney, but he's not doing it for free.
Just to be clear, I'm not recommending, I'm getting quotes and facilitating. This is obviously, I'm not investigating my clients.
A list of individuals at a certain price, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so why would we do that when we have a state agency available to do that right here for free? That's my point exactly. And this is nothing new. You and I had a long conversation about this.
We absolutely did. And we're more or less saying.
Did I surprise you with any of it?
No.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments by council?